2025 is here, and we're gearing up for another great year of killer rock music. And although we don't know every big rock release that's going to be coming out in 2025, there are already a ton of big albums scheduled for the first few months of the year. Here is your 2025 rock music preview. To kick off the year on January the 10th, we have Franz Ferdinand and their new album, The Human Fear. This is the 6th studio album from the Scottish rockers, the first with their new drummer, Audrey Tate, and it's actually been 7 years since we got new music from Franz Ferdinand, since 2018's Always Ascending. And I'm not a diehard Franz Ferdinand fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have a soft spot for their mid-2000s hits like Take Me Out, and the singles that have been released so far from this new album are pretty solid. The first single, Audacious, has a great chorus. The other track they've released, Night or Day, has the typical Franz Ferdinand indie stomp, so it should be a good start to the year. Also on January the 10th, we get the new album from Tremonti, The End Will Show Us How. This is the 6th solo studio album from the Creed and Alter Bridge guitarist, who's been enjoying a good couple of years with the reunited Creed. Who thought that would happen? And then Alter Bridge also put out a good album back in 2022 called Pawns and Kings. And I don't really know much about the solo work of Mark Tremonti, but from what I've heard from this record, it's actually appropriately heavy. It sounds pretty cool. Songs like The Mother, The Earth and I, and One More Time have huge riffs and melodies. So if you're looking for a hard rocking start to 2025, this is definitely it. Also on January the 10th, it's a good start to the year. We get the new solo album from Ringo Starr called Look Up. Ringo, I love the man, but he has released a lot of mediocre solo albums over the years. Except for I Want to Be Santa Claus, his Christmas album, that one is a Christmas staple. And this one sees Ringo going back to doing country music, something he hasn't done for a very long time since his solo album Boku Blues back in 1970. And he's actually kept very busy, obviously, since 1970, but especially in the last couple of years. He released a series of EPs over the last few years, including Crooked Boy, which came out last year, and that was produced by Linda Perry and featured guest spots like Nick Valenci. But Ringo is Ringo. The material is what it is. And, I'm just glad that he stayed very busy. He stayed very prolific. And I hope that he never stops making music, even at the ripe old age of 84. On January the 31st, we get the new album from Manic Street Preachers called Critical Thinking. This is the 15th studio album from the veteran Welsh rockers, one of my favorite bands ever. I love these guys. Their last album, The Ultra Vivid Lament, was really solid, if a little bit by the numbers. Maybe not their greatest album, but so far, the singles from this new album have been really solid. I really love the first single, Decline and Fall, and then I love the other single on here as well, Hiding in Plain Sight, which is the first Manic Street Preachers single to feature lyricist Nicky Wire on lead vocals. With Manic Street Preachers releasing a new album, I think that 2025 is shaping up to be a solid year for Brit rock fans as we approach the biggest Brit rock moment of the year, which is going to be the Oasis reunion in July. Also on January the 31st, we get the new album from LS Dunes called Violet. This is the sophomore LP from the rock supergroup that features members of Coheed and Cambria, My Chemical Romance, Thursday, and Circa Survive. This is the follow-up to 2022's Past Lives, and the material they've released so far definitely represents the sound of those bands. It's a little bit of a smorgasbord of all those great hard rock acts, of course, with Anthony Green's signature high-range voice singing on these tracks. To be honest, I haven't loved everything I've heard from this project, but it's definitely among the most high-profile releases of 2025, so I have high hopes. On February the 7th, we get the new album from Inhaler called Open Wide. This is the third studio record from the Irish rockers led by Elijah Hewson, who's the son of Paul Hewson, aka Bono of U2. And these guys have been making a name for themselves in the UK music scene. The first single from the record, Your House, is led by a killer bass groove before breaking into a wide open chorus. It's a really cool track. And I have to say, it does have a slightly U2 feel to it, so be warned if your mileage with U2 varies, like it definitely does with me. Don't worry, I don't think Inhaler is going to force download their new album onto your iPhone or anything, but who knows. On February the 14th, we get the new album from Doves, Constellations for the Lonely. Yeah, Doves are returning with a new album after a much shorter hiatus between albums. I think it was between 2010 to 2020 was the last gap between records, a good solid 10 years. But this time, we only have a few years in between. And I love the Doves, but I didn't really love the last album from 2020 called The Universal Want. Still a great band that I love, but I'm hoping that this one has some new classics that I can add to the Doves canon. Not really sure right now. There wasn't really a lot of great tracks on the last record, but the first single from this record, Renegades, is pretty solid, so fingers crossed. On February the 21st, we get the new album from Sam Fender called People Watching. This is the third studio album from the British singer-songwriter. He's kind of like England's answer to Bruce Springsteen or Bleachers or something like that. Whichever Springsteen-esque sound you want to compare it to, that is definitely the sound of Sam Fender, which is not a bad thing. I love Sam Fender. He's a great songwriter, and his songs have this very uplifting and themic feel to them that make you feel like 10 feet tall. They make you feel great. The title track from here, People Watching, is really solid, as well as the other single called Wild Long Lie. I think this is going to be one of the highlights of the year, and it should be a highlight for many UK rock fans. Also on February the 21st, we get the new album from emo rocker Silverstein called Anti-Bloom. Yeah, these guys are from my neck of the woods, Southern Ontario. They're from Burlington, Ontario, right next to my hometown of Hamilton. And they were always a staple when I was going to see shows back in the day. Always a staple of the local emo, screamo scene. And they've been in the scene for over 20 years. These guys are veterans of the emo scene. I guess that would just be called rock now. I don't really think emo is as much of a genre anymore, but it's still very cool to see them doing their thing. And this is actually the first of a double album that they're releasing in 2025. The other half, called Pink Moon, will be out later this year. The first single, Confession, is pure Silverstein. It's a great track. It's pretty killer. So I'm looking forward to the new double album from Silverstein. On March the 7th, we get the new album from Spirit Box called Tsunami Sea. I'm not really a huge fan of Spirit Box, but they're Canadian, so they got that going for them. And this is surprisingly only their second studio album. It feels like they've been around a lot longer. This is the follow-up to 2021's Eternal Blue. They've been making huge waves in the hard rock and metal scene, so expect this one to be on a lot of best metal albums of the year lists come the end of 2025. On March the 14th, we get the new album from Coheed and Cambria, Vaxis 3, the father of make-believe. What a title. Ah yes, the Vaxis series from Coheed, or as I call it, Vaxis. I loved Vaxis 1, especially Vaxis 2, even though the Ambery Wars storyline in general goes way over my head. But if you don't dig the lyrical content, if you don't dig deep into the lyrical content of Coheed and Cambria, there are plenty of riffs and guitar goodness to enjoy throughout their catalog. Coheed are one of the most epic and forward-thinking bands in rock right now, and they've released already a couple of singles from this record that are really cool. Searching for Tomorrow and Blindside Sunny. They're both solid singles, so this is shaping up to be a solid record, maybe one of the best of 2025. And the last one that I have on the calendar so far for the rock music preview for 2025 is on March the 28th, the new album from The Darkness and their album called Dreams on Toast. This is the 8th studio album from the British rockers led by Mr. Justin Hawkins, who these days is just as well known for being a popular YouTuber as he is as a musician. But The Darkness are still a great band. Longest Kiss is a pure piano-driven, Queen-inspired, awesome track. Really love that. And at the end of the day, The Darkness are just a great old-school rock and roll band that never gets old, even in 2025. I love The Darkness. And like I said, those are the albums that I have on the calendar so far for 2025. I may be missing some, so let me know in the comments below. But in terms of the ones, bands that I'm hoping release new albums in 2025, and I think there'll be a good chance that we hear from most of these bands this year. Biffy Clyro, one of my favorite bands of all time, Scottish rockers. I'm hoping they release a new record in 2025. I do think they will. Their last record, The Myth of the Happily Ever After, came out in 2021. So I think we are due for brand new Biffy Clyro in 2025. So I have my fingers crossed for that. Also want to hear from one of my other favorite UK bands, Don Broco. I feel like they're going to hopefully put out new music in 2025. Their last album, Amazing Things, came out in 2021. I saw them live in Toronto back in 2023. So I feel like we're due for new music from one of my other favorite UK rock bands, Don Broco. Also in 2025, I'd love to see a new album from Weezer. I know maybe not a lot of people love the Seasons quadrilogy that came out in 2022, I believe now. So it's been a few years. It's going to be 3 years since we got new music from Weezer. So I'd like to hear a new album from them. I would love to hear a new album from Jimmy Eat World. Aside from a couple of singles over the last couple of years, we haven't gotten a new studio album from Jimmy Eat World since 2019. So I'm very much hoping that they put out a new record in 2025. I'd also love to hear a new record from Turnstile. It's been about 4 years since their last studio record, Glow On, came out in 2021. One of my absolute favorite records of the last decade or so, definitely the last few years. So hopefully we get new music from Turnstile. And this might be a long shot, but with their long-awaited reunion finally happening in 2025, I am hoping that we get new music from Oasis. I would love a new album. However, if it's a new song or anything, I would love to get new music from Oasis to go along with their 2025 live reunion. So we'll see what happens. It might be a long shot. We've heard mixed things or mixed rumors about whether it's actually a real thing, but I would love to see and hear some new music from Oasis in 2025. And that is it, guys. That is my 2025 rock music preview. At least those are the ones that stood out to me that I've seen on the calendar. I'm sure that I missed a couple of releases, and you can list those in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to toss me a thumbs up and appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, and make sure to follow me across social media platforms at Nick Chino Music. But I'll see you guys again for another video here on the channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.